Good morning. Thank you for joining me this morning in the Careers Corner. Please, could you introduce yourself?
Yes, I am Maxine Beech and I'm a Humanist Wedding Celebrant.
Brilliant. And what does your job involve?
So I say I'm a Humanist Wedding Celebrant. I also am a celebrant for baby namings and funerals, but by and large, I work mostly with couples who want to plan their wedding, but they want to plan it in a very bespoke way. So they want to plan a ceremony that really says something about their relationship, that expresses how they feel about each other and about their future, and involves their family and friends. So every ceremony is written completely from scratch, and it is tailored towards each and every individual relationship. So there's a lot of creativity involved, and yeah, it's really exciting because you never know who you're going to work with. The other part of the role, as I say, is the baby namings and funerals. So I also write baby naming ceremonies and funeral scripts, and that's something that I decided to train in to be able to offer those services to couples primarily that I've already worked with, so I can be a bit of a family celebrant for all stages of life.
Lovely. And what was your career's journey to get to this point?
Oh, well, I think I took quite a roundabout route to get into this role. When I left university, I studied in philosophy at Warwick, and when I left, I really wanted to take a little bit of a gap year. I hadn't taken a gap year before university, so I took a bit of time out to work in the animal welfare sector. It's something I'd always had an interest in. I ended up working for the Blue Cross, which is a national animal charity, and worked as part of their events and their education team. And it was really from that I decided I might want to use my degree and actually start looking at training to be a teacher, having had that education role in animal welfare, to actually look at teaching. So I trained to be a teacher, and I taught religious education and sociology for quite a few years, about 7 years in total. During that time, I was creating resources around humanism, so to teach a non-religious worldview as part of the RE curriculum, and met up with a few humanist celebrants doing the job that I'm now doing, and they talked with such passion about what they did, and I was so inspired by them, and I just thought, gosh, you're wonderful people. I'd really love to know a little bit more about that job. So I actually looked into trained with Humanist UK, which is a national organisation, and I became a celebrant, thinking it might be a bit of a hobby that I do on the side, and became very, very busy. And I very quickly had to make the choice between teaching full-time and being a full-time celebrant. And I thought, let's give it a go. Let's have a go at working for myself and being self-employed for a while and doing something a bit different.
Wow. So a big decision, a big change.
Yeah, a very big change, having spent so long on that cycle of term dates and that sort of fresh start every September. My year was kind of turned around, and I became busiest in sort of May onwards.
Lovely. So do you need any particular qualification, skills or character traits to be successful with what you're doing?
The training, as I said, was with Humanist UK. You have to go through an application process. It's about 4 months to train, and that is face-to-face training weekends. It's now being run online predominantly. Once you've actually finished the training and the assessments, you then have to be observed conducting ceremonies in order to be fully accredited as a Humanist UK celebrant, and you have to complete yearly CPD, and you continue training. So you're still very much part of the network, even though you're working completely self-employed. But I think the range of experience I'd had prior to applying certainly helped. The fact that I could be very organised, that I could write clearly, the fact that I could hold an audience. It's just that my audience has increased from around 30 students to around 100 to 200 guests at a wedding.
Lovely. So do you have a typical day, and could you describe it?
Obviously, this year's been a little different and very challenging. So thinking back to what a typical day would have been like last year, the days would tend to be split either between writing or conducting meetings. So generally it would be waking up, checking emails, replying to couples, pacing up with where we're at in different stages of planning ceremonies, speaking to family, friends, bridesmaids, getting all the inside information on couples. So there's quite a lot of administration, keeping on track. Then the rest of the day would normally, if it's a weekday, involve script writing. That was the bulk of what I did, and it would take probably around 3 days or so to get a complete draft for a ceremony, and then there's lots of additional things to add in as well. So quite a time-consuming process. I think I added it up that I was writing about 100,000 words of original script a year, which is like a novel, really. So a lot of writing. And if it wasn't writing, it would be meeting with couples, holding consultations, where we'd sit for a few hours and plan ceremonies. So that would be a typical weekday. And obviously a weekend is usually conducting the ceremony.
Lovely. So which are the parts that you enjoy most about your job?
Whilst I do love the wedding day, of course, it is wonderful to see all of that hard work come together, and you get to meet all of the family and friends, and very often the couples are very generous and ask you to stay for a glass of champagne. Sometimes I've stayed for meals. So, you know, the wedding day is the real celebration. But I think for me, it's actually been spending time in the presence of each couple. So I would typically meet the couples for maybe 3 or 4 times before the wedding. So from an initial meeting, an actual consultation, perhaps a vow writing workshop, a rehearsal, and really getting to know them, getting to know how they got together, what their hopes are, how they work, how they resolve conflicts, you know, all of the good and the bad. And it was absolutely fascinating. So it made me branch out a little bit. So as well as continuing to do wedding ceremonies and vow writing workshops, I've been spending this last year training in psychotherapy at master's level, so that I can branch out and offer, on the one hand, couples therapy for couples that are struggling, but also I can conduct workshops, which is a model looking at how to get a good relationship even better. So how to strengthen relationships as people are starting out in married life. So that's been a really exciting new venture for me this year.
Wow, big changes. So what's the biggest challenge then you've faced?
Starting out with your own business, you know, being self-employed, it takes a lot of perseverance, a little bit of courage, a little bit of a leap of faith. I was lucky in that I could reduce my teaching hours whilst I was building up my client base. So I wasn't just thrown in at the deep end. But you certainly learn a lot about business, and you learn a lot about yourself. So I've never really enjoyed the social media part of it very much. I have to create a lot of social media posts because typically that's where clients are, and they like to be kept up to date. But I found that it produced a lot of self-doubt in myself, and I was comparing myself to other celebrants, wondering if I was good enough. It really made me question a lot of things, and it took quite a while before that feeling of constantly comparing myself to others turned more into a collaboration. And I think that was a very, very hard thing to overcome, but it made me realize that actually most people are very generous, very friendly, very welcoming, and I found that actually collaborating as part of a network has been really, really beneficial.
What advice would you give anyone who's thinking about joining the profession?
I would say it requires quite a range of skills: interviewing skills, writing skills, organizational skills, really taking control of the whole wedding ceremony. So on the day itself, you end up becoming the wedding planner. They're all very DIY, and you know, you're as likely to end up sewing a button onto somebody's jacket, you know, just anything that needs doing, you need to do. So having a range of experience, I think, is a really good thing. So I would say probably, you know, speak to people who are already doing the role if you can. Find out what actually goes on behind the scenes, because it looks very glamorous from the photos, but there's a huge amount of work and some slightly less glamorous things that go on behind the scenes as well.
Okay. And who would be your role model?
Who would be my role model? I think at the moment, whilst I'm training in couples therapy, it's definitely Esther Perel. She is a psychodynamic psychotherapist specializing in relationships, and she's quite a role model because she has popularized the idea of talking more openly about relationships and things that go wrong. She's run a series of podcasts sort of talking about therapy, opening up therapy sessions. I think that's quite inspirational to bring that into more mainstream conversation, not just all the highs and all the wonderful things like you see at a wedding, but the day-to-day realities of relationships as well. And
what advice, finally, would you give your 15-year-old self?
I think that the funny thing is, when I was 15, I didn't know what I wanted to be. I think I wanted to be a writer. I definitely did not want to be a teacher. And I definitely did not want to be a counsellor. Both are things that people thought I might be good at. I was determined that I wasn't going to do either. And yet I've done them and I've loved them. So keep an open mind, get a range of skills, take any opportunities that you can. I tell myself to really think about what I enjoy doing and less about what I feel I'm expected to do. So yeah, keep an open mind, and really sort of just follow your heart.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Maxine, for joining me today in my Careers Corner. We really appreciate your time. Thank you.
Very welcome.